My experience coming to grips with who I am as a lesbian has been wrought with shame and fear from the church who advertises itself as the Love Church. And the bravest thing I've ever done is come out in the hopes that by somehow putting a face to the shame culture they were perpetuating, that culture would change. God brought me down this path for a reason, and I would like to share a little bit of my experience as a Christian lesbian with you. I was 15 when I realized I was a lesbian. I was in math class, and this really cute girl walked in front of me, and I caught myself staring at her bum, and it sort of clicked. I had never looked at a boy that way before, and I've never looked at a boy that way since. When I was 17, it seemed like there was an influx of LGBT students into the school where I attended, and they were harassed on a daily basis by the greater student body. They wanted to start a gay-straight alliance so that they had a safe place where they could meet, but the school administration thought that that would just paint a target on their backs. So they said no. The harassment continued. There was no training for the staff in those days in how to relate to these students or how to talk to them. No training in their basic human rights. No nothing. To help drum up support for the Gay-Straight Alliance, one of my friends thought it would be a fantastic idea if we all wore pride ribbons to school this one day. I can still remember his face, the tone of his voice, where he was sitting in the hallway, and where I was standing as he sneered at me. "You're not gay, are you?" I decided at that very moment I was not going to put up with the harassment that being gay would cause me. I was going to hide behind the disguise of being bisexual, and I would only date boys. I made good on that. I made so good on that after a couple of years, I actually convinced myself that I was straight. I joined this really loving church who was also really anti-gay. And my life moved on. But every time I heard a statement in my new church that I made against the LGBT community or an LGBT person, it cut me to the core. It scared me and it shamed me, like somebody would see into my past and challenge me with it. I found myself conflicted between who I was naturally and the definitive messages I was getting about what my church thought about homosexuals. It's important for me that you understand that my church isn't all bad, because it's not. There is an incredible amount of love and empathy in the congregation, but I found the love was specific and was fine as long as it fell into tidy and acceptable pockets. Looking at me, you can't tell that I'm disabled, but I am. And before I was first diagnosed with this disability, I thought I was dying. A week before I had to go to the doctor for diagnosis and a treatment plan, I was talking to this woman at church, and she, sensing my unease, volunteered to take me to the doctor. She met me downtown on the day of my appointment and walked me to the doctor's office. She sat with me an hour and a half in the waiting room because the doctor was running late. And then after my appointment, she debriefed me about what the doctor had said in the appointment. That's how loving this church can be. But the same woman, though, got into a rip-roaring argument in the church while I was there about homosexuality and said that parents of homosexuals needed to learn to parent their children properly and teach them to behave like their proper genders. I'm no expert, but I don't think parenting plays a big part in whether or not somebody comes out gay. Another man once told me, right to my face, that it was all right to use the word faggot. His reasoning? A faggot wasn't actually a gay person. It was, in his mind, a cigarette. So we should use words in what we thought were their true meanings, and nobody would get hurt. But he didn't realize that words like that do hurt, because meanings of words change, and negative intention and tone is embedded. Yet I stayed, despite all of this. Do you want to know why? 2 months after I joined this church, their children's teacher left, and they asked me to teach these kids. And these kids are the most adorable kids ever. Before I knew what happened, they wormed their way into my heart, and eventually it hurt so much to leave them that I couldn't leave. So I put up with all the anti-gay nonsense I was hearing. I went on pretending to be straight for about 6 years, until I went to university and I sat in front of her in class. Now my seat in this class was in the front row, on the right side, the very last seat, right in front of the door. So everybody who came into this class had to walk in front of me to get to their seats. And I remember it was the second or third class, and I was sitting looking at my notes, and she walks in, and I smell her, and her smell is intoxicating. And my heart starts to beat wildly in my chest. And my fingers, they get all tingly so I can't hold my pen. And my face goes beet red. It's this immediate physical reaction. And then she's past my desk and I can't smell her anymore and my body just calms down. This happens every class that semester. Very apparent, very quickly, that I can play straight all I want, but I am still very much a lesbian. I had a conundrum, because on the one hand, I had this church telling me that God hated gay people, but on the other hand, I had this perfectly natural reaction to the smell of this woman who, in all honesty, I never even saw. I did what any self-respecting woman does in situations like this. I cried a lot. And when the tears started to run out, I started to pray. I read everything I could get my hands on about homosexuality in the Bible, which, as you can imagine, only confused me further. I needed answers. I needed someone safe to talk to, someone who understood God. I needed a pastor. Luckily, God put a lot of those in the city of Winnipeg. I came out to a pastor friend of mine, and he had the grace to accept me for who I was and to not judge me. He answered all my questions and showed me that no matter what I decided about God and being gay, God would love me no matter what. The last time I met with this pastor friend before I came out, I gave him an ultimatum. I told him that either I had to come out and end the shame language that was wearing me down, or I had to leave and find a safe place to call my home. He agreed that I should come out. I took to Facebook at this point. Don't all good stories eventually involve Facebook?
Of course.
I made a video explaining the fact that I was a lesbian and that I was tired of hiding. I explained that I had searched the Bible and that I was sure that God loved me despite my sexual orientation. I tagged all the Christian friends I had on Facebook in the comments. I was very nervous about this video. Everything up to this point, the crying, the reading, the praying, even the coming out to my pastor friend, nothing was as hard as pushing that upload button because I expected there to be so much negative backlash. I expected to lose my job teaching the kids. But I knew the right thing to do was to end the shame of hiding and to come out into the open. There were only 2 negative comments. There were 30 positive comments on the video. My pastor, who was impressed with the initiative with which I had searched the Bible for God's will and purpose for my life, actually promoted me to a different position in the church with a tougher group of students to teach. Not everybody at the church knows that I'm a lesbian. Not even my students know. There's this saying in the church when it comes to sin: love the sinner, hate the sin. I've heard it since I began coming to church 8 years ago. It means to love the person for who they are, but hate what they do and what action they take in their life that goes against what the Bible says. I wish the church lived by this axiom. If they lived by this, maybe there wouldn't be such shame when it came to what they perceived as sin. Not just homosexuality, but unwed mothers, gamblers, and alcoholics. You see, shame steals a person's voice, not just because the person becomes unwilling to speak out, but because other people, when they know of their shame, become unwilling to listen to them. My passion in life is to bring love, unity, and respect back to the church, to remove the shame language and the shame attitude that people have when it comes to dealing with sin, so that a dialogue can happen. I teach the youth Sabbath school class at church, and I have to be careful myself not to use the shame language with them. The latest thing we've been talking about is drugs. I find that if I try to shame them into following my lead, the problem continues and they don't want to come to me with their issues. But if I talk with them, raise questions, and have a dialogue, they know they can trust me. They learn to trust themselves, and change can happen. This change happens both ways. I change and they change. The sinner changes and the church changes to embody love and respect. It was very early on in my church career that I knew I was called to be a pastor. I was filling out an application for our church university, and my pastor at the time, Pastor Potts, made the comment that maybe one day they'd be calling me Pastor Brianna. I couldn't sleep that night. The idea stuck. I ran from it. Just the idea of having all those spiritual lives in my hands, ready to be molded, scared the bejesus out of me. But God chased me all the way across the country and back with the idea. And when I thought that LGBT people could not be pastors, He brought 3 mentors in my lives who told me that they could be, and told me that I should follow where God led. In the time since I have come out, I have most definitely changed. And here I thought that my coming out would change the world. Church went from this scary place full of shame to this place that, for sure, has a bunch of closed-minded people, but has some people that act like rays of sunshine that cast the rainbow. Maybe it hasn't changed, but I certainly have changed, and the way I see things has changed. Isn't that what a coming out is? It's a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. Well, this caterpillar is transforming into one fabulous butterfly. And I hope to encourage generations of God-loving and God-loved gay people to embrace their inner caterpillars so that they too can feel safe enough to change into the beautiful butterflies we are all capable of being. Thank you.